Throughout the rest of this third chapter, I'm going to be starting videos with the terminal open on the left and inside of the Node Basics folder. On the right, I'm always going to start with an empty file, and we're going to build the file together. Just to let you know, I think it'll save us both some time and some struggle, so you don't have to watch me open up the terminal and open up Sublime Text every video. Okay, in this video, you're going to learn about strings. What's a string? Well, you actually already saw a little bit of strings in the previous video. A string is anything that comes between some quotes. Let's go ahead and create a new variable. I'm going to call mine name, and I'm going to set it equal to a string. Single quotes, Sublime Text automatically completes those quotes, and I simply type my name here. You'll notice that the syntax highlighting hasn't kicked in yet. That's because I haven't saved the file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to call the file strings.js, and I'm going to save it inside of my Node Basics folder. Now that Sublime Text knows it's a JavaScript file based off of the file's extension, the syntax highlighting has kicked in. Excellent. Okay, so a string is anything in between single quotes. You can actually also use double quotes, like this. They're both the exact same thing. It's best practice to pick one and stick with it. I recommend using single quotes because the single quote is the default for the key, and you have to press Shift to access the double quote. Having to press Shift isn't a big deal, but over the course of your JavaScript career, I think it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of pain. So single quotes is the best way to go. I'm going to be using them throughout the course. If there's ever a situation where I'm using double quotes for a specific reason, I'll call it out and I'll tell you why. A string can be anything at all. It can be Andrew. It could be Andrew123 with the exclamation mark, an @ symbol, and a hashtag. Any character on your keyboard can go inside of a string. In this case, I'm going to set my name equal to Andrew. Perfect. Let's go ahead and console log Andrew to the screen, just so we can make sure the program's working properly. If you remember from the previous videos, I'm going to be typing console.log parentheses, and inside of the parentheses, I'm going to reference the variable name. Add a semicolon at the end, save your file, and let's go ahead and run it from the terminal and see what happens. You should be able to expect what happens here. It's pretty similar to what we did in the last video. Andrew prints to the screen. I'm going to go ahead and create a second variable. Go ahead and call yours last name and set it to your last name. In my case, I'm going to set it to Mead. One cool thing about strings is that you can add them together to create one longer string that takes the first string plus the second string. To do that, all you have to do is use the plus sign on your keyboard. And you can do it anywhere you can reference a variable. So inside of console log, I can type console.log, open parentheses, name, space, plus, space, last name. Now go ahead and guess what the output's going to be. And when you have a good guess, head over to the terminal and rerun node strings. Remember, you can always use the up arrow on your keyboard to put the last command back in the command prompt. This will save you some time when you're rerunning the same file over and over again. Here, you can see Andrew Mead prints to the screen, but unfortunately, there's no space in between. Now, this is expected. I'm taking the value of name. At the end of that, I'm putting on the value of last name, and neither of them have a space, so no space should show up. To remedy this problem, we can simply add another string to the series. In this case, instead of creating a new variable and setting its value to space, I'm simply going to create a string right here inside of the call to console log. So you can see we can combine variables along with strings created on the fly to create a bigger, longer string. If you save this file and rerun it from the terminal, now you can see that Andrew Mead has a nice space in the middle and it's looking great. All right, a couple more cool things you can do with strings. One great thing strings have is the length property. The length property is going to show you how long a string is. If I want to see how long my name is, I can use console.log to print it to the screen. I'm going to open and close my parentheses and put the semicolon at the end. And inside of the parentheses, you can use the variable name. I'm going to go with last name dot length. The length property exists on every string, and it returns a number of characters in that string. So I'm going to guess that I'm going to get 4 back since there's 4 letters in my last name. If I rerun the file from the terminal, you can see that Andrew Mead prints, and then just below that on a new line, the number 4 prints. Very cool. Now, before I send you on your way with the challenge, I want to talk about variable naming. JavaScript, which is Node.js, has a pretty strict rule about what you can and cannot use in a variable name. To start a variable name, you have to use either a lower or uppercase letter. So anything like A or B or E or capital P, those are all valid ways to start. You can also start with 2 other characters that aren't letters, the underscore character and the money sign character. To get to underscore, you need to use shift hyphen. That should be just to the right of the 0 key on your keyboard. To get to the money character, it's shift 4. After that first character, you can also use numbers. So the first character has to be a letter, underscore, or money sign. I'm going to pick N. But the second character could be an uppercase or lowercase letter, like A or lowercase v. It can also be underscore or money sign. And it can also be a number, so anything like 0 or 1 or 9. These are all valid variable names. A variable can't start or have any of the other special symbols in it, like an exclamation mark or an @ symbol. Those are not valid variable names. You can't start your variable name with a number either. You can use a number in a variable name, but it can't be the first character. You'll also notice that when I named my variable last name, I didn't use a lowercase n. This is called camel casing. The first letter of each word in a variable name is uppercase. It makes it a little easier to read. So instead of last name lowercase, which is a little harder to read, I can use the uppercase to say new word. Okay, on to the challenge. Go ahead and delete the contents of strings.js, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to create 2 variables, a first name and a last name variable. Make sure to use camel casing when you name your variable. Up next, I want you to create a new variable called full name. I want you to set the value of full name equal to your first name plus a space plus the last name. Lastly, I want you to console log your full name, and I also want you to log out the length. Take a moment to pause the video. Go ahead and do all of that and run it from the terminal, and when you're done, click play. All right, here's one way you could have done it. First up, I need to create a first name variable. I'm going to use the var keyword since it's a new variable. I'm going to call it first, uppercase N, name. And I'm going to set it equal to a string, Andrew. On the next line, I want to create a last name variable. I'm going to call my variable last name with an uppercase N for camel casing. I'm going to set it equal to my last name, and then put a semicolon at the end. Now I want to create the full name variable. It's also a new variable, so I have to use the var keyword. Full name camel cased. Here I'm going to concatenate the variables. When I say concatenate, what I mean is take one string and put it at the end of another string. So anytime I say adding two strings together or concatenating two strings, those are the same thing. Here I'm going to take the value of first name. I'm going to add a space, plus space, in quotes, type a space. Then I'm going to add another plus sign, and I'm going to reference the last name variable. Now I have my full name, which should contain first name plus a space plus the last name. To wrap this up, all I need to do is log out the contents of full name and also log out the length. To log out the contents, I'm going to call console.log full name. Perfect. I also want to log out the length. So to do that, I'm going to also call console log. Inside of the parentheses, I'm going to access the length property on the full name variable. Excellent. Now, once your file looks something like this, you can head over to the terminal, type node space strings.js. The enter key runs the command and executes the program. And here you can see Andrew Mead prints, and 11 is the length. If you count the characters, it is indeed 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Excellent. Hopefully the length was appropriate for your name as well. If it wasn't, maybe you forgot the space, or maybe you weren't expecting the space to be counted. But the space is indeed counted. Congratulations on getting through strings. In the next video, we're going to be introducing if statements so I can show you how to run different code based on different variable values.